you're woke, right? And I don't like that on the left when they say our founding fathers were racist. We can, like, all the documents they treated were trash. We should tear down the statues. I don't like it on the right when they say, we should, enact a purity test where you can only get elected to office if you're baptized, or like whatever the version of that is. But I think what we need to start doing is being precise about it.
Why would the majority of his audience abandon him for talking about the woke right if he's a centrist or moderate? Isn't that kind of weird? Why would that happen? Freedom of speech is under attack today more than it ever has been in US history, and it's under attack by liars that have stolen the microphones on every single platform and have used it to amplify lies and disinformation about every single sector of American society.
That same centrist types could agree on without having to get into purity tests and struggle sessions. Like, what could we do to find some commonality?
I think it's very tough if we cannot agree to the level of threat I think that democracy is under. Like, I think we have different perceptions of that, right? I was obviously hoping that you could convince me that Trump is less of an existential threat than I think that he is. Because it seems as though you think he's less of an existential threat than I do, presumably. So
yeah, I don't think he's not a threat. Like, I know.
I said more than I do. I said more than I do. Very
I started this conversation saying, and just to do the callback, that I wanted to vote right and didn't because of that exact issue. So I'm not the guy to come out here and like do the robust defense of Trump in this area. I'm not the guy. But where we disagree is probably in severity and also in, and I think we've disagreed on this to death, so we don't need to keep doing it, the extent of the threat on the left in terms of the way that the culture was trending and what that meant long term. But we don't need to, I don't think it's
Wow, Duck Festini fan 1, thank you for the 5 gifted subs.
Useful for me to require that you agree with me on this or that I have to agree with you on this stuff. What I do think would be useful is to start thinking about what are, it's weird because you're Canadian, I keep forgetting this. Like, what are the core American principles that we're looking for going forward that we can use to identify when somebody's out of bounds?
Sure. So I think free speech is basically something. So obviously there's inciting and blah, 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 the legal stuff that I'm good with. I'm good with the rules that America has around free speech, right? And I think they're really solid. I think free speech is fundamental. I think that the democracy dies when free speech is gone. I think any infringement from free speech needs to be hit with very, very hard retribution from everyone. I think that
I agree with this, but we need to talk about what free speech means, because freedom of speech is under attack today more than it ever has been in US history, and it's under attack by fucking liars that have stolen the microphones on every single platform and have used it to amplify lies and disinformation about every single sector of American society, right? Our free speech is under attack when Evil Johnson is allowed to go on every media outlet and just lie about what the Democrats want to do instead of having an actual conversation, having an actual dialogue. Like, in a way, it is a form of government censorship. You are not allowing us to have real conversations because all you do is come out and fucking lie about everything. You are prohibiting Americans from having honest conversations, from having honest dialogue and honest discourse when all these alternative media people, all these conservatives just come out and lie over and over and over again.
It's the best thing about America, frankly.
I think free speech is a great one. I liked Wick's suggestion here, which was that I would like to see bipartisan support for an organization like FIRE. Because one of the things that really made me actually deeply concerned about the left was the way the ACLU morphed from a free speech organization into a general left position advocacy group where they'll actually take positions contrary to free speech because they have more than one value now. And it's fine.
So I know the ACLU got really kind of hung up on the attacking Trump thing, but did they take anti-free speech positions? I'm curious. I felt like there was one woke DEI thing that I think I might have disagreed with, but in general, is that true?
We need impact litigation for all sorts of things. I'm not upset that there are impact litigators on.
Who triggers you more, this guy Rob Noah? Rob Noah, with the way that he argues, triggers me more, but this guy's general disposition triggers the fuck out of me. These fake moderate centrist types.
Both sides. I love that about America. But I was sad to see the ACLU stray from that principle. And FIRE takes endless shit. They take endless shit. They take it from the left. They take it from the right. They take endless shit. So I would very much like to see that sort of thing. I think maybe that's something we could agree on. Both parties should start treating FIRE like the ACLU of old. They're our barometer for free speech issues going forward. And we don't have to agree with them, but we should at least use them as kind of the litmus test. And then we can have conversations about them. But to get out of this thing where, I don't know if you I don't know how aware you were of FIRE back in Biden, but the right loved FIRE under Biden, and the left hated them. And now the right loves them sometimes, but mostly hates them, right? And it's it just flip-flopped mostly. And you were FIRE back in Biden, but the right loved FIRE under Biden, and the left hated them. And now the right Did
the left hate FIRE? I'm not trying to be mean because I think I've worked with a couple of people and talked with people related to FIRE. I don't think FIRE is that large. What is their funding? Compared to the ACLU, what is FIRE? FIRE is the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. They have 120 employees, including a litigation department of about 20 lawyers. What is the size of the ACLU? The budget of the ACLU in 2024 was $383 million. And they have 500 staff attorneys as opposed to the 20 in FIRE. I don't think anybody has felt strongly about FIRE because they're just not that large of an organization. So I don't know what he's talking about there.
Loves them sometimes, but mostly hates them, right? And it's it just flip-flopped mostly. It's and people are inconsistent with that organization. So maybe that's the point of commonality.
Yeah, I think also basically, speaking of strong left, strong right, basically we need liberals to recapture pop culture from leftists. Like right now, it feels like the left is like the furthest center you get in the like the pop cultural zeitgeist is like the corporate elite, like the East Coast elite essentially, and then included in that is like
you got to be careful. Like the left has like a strong hold on culture, I guess, but it's also because like the right kind of sort of just fucking gave up and disengaged from it completely. And also, it's not like those far left culture people are like pushing politics, right? They just kind of like do cultural stuff. Like Taylor Swift endorsing Kamala didn't accomplish fuck all. No one gave a fuck. They're not really that political.
Hey, what's up?
Hi, what's up? Okay, hold on. I just want to give you a quick thing to think about. Maybe you already talked about this, or I don't know, but it works well with your feelings bullshit.
How dare you?
Something that doesn't get brought up enough when people talk about being like a moderate or a centrist is like, if you have a person who says that they believe in a thing, I think that sometimes it's telling the company they keep and the jokes that they laugh at and the things that they let slide. And I think that that's way more telling than like the positions that they hold. Do you understand that? Or do you want me to elaborate more or give you examples on that? Okay.
No, that totally makes sense. It would speak to like the imbalance that I was finding that he would have, where like he would be kind of dismissive of the Trump stuff. Like he'd be like, yeah, it's bad. But then when he talks about the Biden stuff, he's like emotionally charged and involved in the commentary. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I think
it's the disconnect I was seeing and feeling and being like, what the fuck are we talking about right now?
Yeah. So I think it leads to that disconnect because their true feelings are probably not what they're expressing to you, number one. But number two, it also makes it hard for reasons that they understand, but they don't enunciate. It makes it hard to work with somebody like this because you're probably not ever going to find like middle ground. Right? If we're trying to figure out like what women's rights should look like in the United States, and I'm arguing with somebody whose true position is that I think that women should largely kind of like not be in school and not be working and should be at the house, right? And we're going to have an argument on, well, what should participation look like for women in schools and how should that, right? That argument is going to be a lot different if I know that that's that person's true position versus if I go on this person's social media feed and he's like constantly making jokes and memes about how like spousal rape is based and like all women should be subjugated to, men's sexual desires whenever they want. Yeah. Because when I look at that person, I'm like, bro, what the fuck? There is no middle ground between us. You're fucking insane. And I noticed that like when the ICE conversation comes up, like I can't have a reasonable conversation with somebody who thinks that Alligator Alcatraz is like based in epic pill. Like there's no middle ground conversation that we can have because it doesn't sound like you're coming from a good place. It sounds like you're fucking unhinged.
That's an interesting litmus to use. Yeah, I mean, the whole time I was talking to him, I know he thought it was a struggle session, but I was getting to the root because I know that he can outpace me in like law stuff, right? The thing I was confused by is him saying that he like had these certain values and purporting that he's like this moderate. And it's like, well, most of the things that you're frustrated about Biden over are left-wing things, which is weird for a moderate to be upset over or to be labeling as anti-constitutional.
Sure.
It feels like you're just a right-winger. And on top of that, it feels like you're not being honest here. And I can't quite figure out why, and which is why your epistemics seem incoherent to me, because you're saying that you care about liberty, but it feels like you're actually prioritizing quote unquote small government, which didn't even want to get into quibbling about whether Trump is actually doing small government because he was shifting the definition of that so much. But it feels like you're putting small government over liberty now, which makes me go, then liberty isn't your deontological principle. Small government is.
Yeah, because
it's political. It's not philosophical.
They're looking for proxy words for things that they actually believe, but the things that sound better, right? So like
yes.
When somebody talks about like a like there's I'm not gonna be able to find this. There's a meme Instagram reel that I liked yesterday, and I think it was supposed to be like a red pill reel, and it was like a woman is sitting there, and the guy is like, we're men, we're providers. You don't understand. That's our role. And then the woman is like, oh, okay, well then why don't you provide for me? And then all the guys are like, oh my God, money grubber. She's just trying to get her bag, blah, 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 right? People will say these things like, oh, I believe in traditional values. Or people do this a lot with Christianity. I believe in Christian values. But you notice that every single one they pick is just stuff that is like convenient for them,
political that they like.
Yeah. And you'll never hear somebody, I notice a lot with religious stuff, you'll never hear somebody say something where their religious value is like a hindrance, like in terms of what they would like to do, but like is morally something that is like valuable, right? Like you'll never hear somebody say like, God, like we shouldn't take it sucks that we have to all these asylum seekers in the United States. Like it's a lot to deal with, but like God tells us that we should take care of our neighbor, and like I guess we have to do it. You'll never hear it that way. It's only ever weaponized for an offensive or aggressive meaning, which makes you think, well, it's probably not about the religion at all. There's like a convenient, facade to adopt. But if you push on it, like you said, like with the government, small government and liberty, it's probably not about liberty. It's probably some other thing that's being proxied for.
Yeah, which is why the whole time I was trying to figure out, I was like, are you just digging your heels in out of pride because you thought that this was a philosophical position? And in talking to me, you're kind of realizing that you're fundamentally political here? Because like, it would be coherent even if he's like, I just like Trump because I like right-wing shit, mad at the left, and I want a smaller government. I'd be like, we can fight about the smaller government stuff, but like the other stuff, like whatever, it's at least coherent. But to say, I like Trump because I think he's directionally towards liberty, he's just fucking it up a little bit, is like obscene to me when you're agreeing that the Comey stuff is really bad. And you're agreeing with me that he's infringing on free speech basically more than anyone, although he started quibbling at the end about the stats that were from the source that he said he really respects, right? And so it's like, I don't know how you could possibly keep telling me that you care about liberty and you're telling me that Biden was worse for liberty than Trump. Like that's
that's an untenable
we're not
position.
in the same reality.
Yeah, it's not liberty. It's not what he cares about at that point. It's like status quo for white men or something, which is obviously going to sound way worse to say, but like that's just a completely untenable position. So. But
yeah, like it just, I came away when I was thinking about it after and like talking to Nick, because the whole time I was like being blackpilled, like, oh my God, moderates are the worst. And I was like, I actually think that moderate is a smokescreen. Like, I don't know whether or not he believes it. Like, I'm sure I'll grant him charity and just assume that he does genuinely believe that he's a moderate. I think the issue is that he hasn't done the reconciling being like, I'm not a moderate anymore. I am conservative and probably have been for a long time.
I think the issue is that the average MAGA person who might be more moderate-ish is not like super politically plugged in. They're not going to know anything about the Comey stuff. They probably just have some general discontent where they can be like reasoned out of it. But like Ryan is like intellectually committed to these positions. He has the information and he's making like the dumbest decision. So he's significant. So like Ryan is not a moderate. Ryan is a hardcore MAGA cocksuck. Like there's no daylight between him and the average MAGA position. My guess is if you asked him today, he would probably still say he wouldn't support the Democratic candidate over the Republican one. And if you talk about like liberty, it's not even
wouldn't vote
it's not even
for
close.
Democrats in the midterm. Yeah, in the midterms, like I don't know how much I cut out because it was like a 5-hour debate and I only put 40 minutes up. But like I basically kept pushing him and being like, well, if you think Trump is really bad for liberty in the midterms, you should do anything to vote against him. Like whatever that would look like, vote in a way that you're not supporting Trump to like weaken his hold on the country right now. And he's just like, you're just trying to make me join your political project. And it's like, no, that would be in line with your espoused values. Which is why I was just so blackpilled. But I think walking away, I'm like, okay, if this is actually what all moderates are like, then yeah, there's like literally no point. I'm just pretty sure he's A, not a moderate, and B, more politically informed than any of the moderates that I'm interested in reaching, because most moderates don't even know anything about this shit. They're just like exclusively vibes voters, which makes
and they
them
have general discontent.
Frustrating, but more able to be reached.
This guy is a super MAGA. This is not a moderate person in any way, size, shape, or form. Also, I know these words come up sometimes, and you can talk to Pisco or somebody else more legally informed or whatever, but when people say like originalist or textual, none of these words mean anything. People will pick and choose these words based on what they think sounds the best at the time, but like people will talk about how they believe in originalism or whatever, but this guy will literally sacrifice his life to defend Trump's criminal ruling, which is just a totally, the criminal immunity thing, which is completely and totally fabricated.
Yes, I should have asked him about that.
Well, he'll have like a super roundabout, retarded way of trying to justify it, but it's bullshit. Or when you talk about like eradicating Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, he'll probably find some way to do it. I haven't heard him speak about that in particular, but like so when these people call themselves originalists, that's just like the thing that sounds the best at the time. It's like calling yourself a centrist or whatever, because they know it's like the high IQ position. Like, I'm not partisan, I'm not MAGA, I'm moderate. That makes me seem better than both sides. When in reality, you know, when the chips fall, it's always on the MAGA side.
Is your read of Ryan then that he like, because so many people that I talked to, like, he's a really, really nice guy. Like, he's a really like nice person. But I have a hard time thinking that somebody's a nice person if they're like kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Like, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is,
well, no, you just described that is a nice person, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Like, that's what the sheep's clothing is, right? It's like when all the people would come away from Andrew Tate being like, I don't know why people don't like him. The guy was like super friendly and everything else. It's like, yeah, no shit, that's what he does. Yeah.
Sure, but just to be clear, when I say a nice person, I should clarify, I don't give a fuck about civility, right? So when people say he's a nice person, they're mostly saying like, yeah, he's really civil. And
that's
I'm like, holy fuck. Yeah. I couldn't give a shit about civility. When I say nice, I should probably say this is a more rounded, like, moral principle, right? Like, this is a person who is kind, who I know that if the Civil War erupted and they started like gunning down Latinos on the street, despite them being a conservative, they'd be principled in that like, this is evil and I would protect and harbor.
No, his principled position would be to say that he doesn't agree with it, but he would take up arms, join the other side, and he would shoot at the people protecting the Latinos, but not the Latinos themselves. He would just let his friends do it. That's the type of principled MAGA centrist centrist or whatever, this type of person is every single time.
Yeah. So do you think that he genuinely thinks that he's a moderate and is just unawares, or do you think that he is intentionally being like slightly duplicitous for like optics gains or something?
I don't know how much people engage in self-delusion. It's impossible to say. I don't know. But like when I argued with him, I asked him, I tried to push him like, what's the one big thing for why you would vote for the right over the left? And he said it was because he had fears that affirmative action would damage his children's future, even though affirmative action was gone under Biden. Yeah, and it's just like such an unserious answer. So I don't know what level of self-delusion these people engage in. It's impossible to say without getting them drunk, I guess, and having a heart-to-heart.
Yeah, it doesn't change, I suppose, the way that you like should engage with them necessarily, but it does change the like perception that I have of that person, which I suppose matters to me.
Sure. But then it's also annoying because it damages your perception or people's perception of you, because then when you're having a conversation with him, it's not you talking against a MAGA person, it's you talking against a moderate. And like the conversation has already started off with he's at the correct position because he's moderated and centrist, and you're in the wacky far left position. So if he makes any concessions at all, it's to move further left to the wackiness, and you have to make concessions to basically come all the way to him. That's why it feels so hard to get any concessions out of him, because he's marketed himself as already being in the intellectually IQ high superior position.
Do you think that, so like when you're in your like kind of black pill like non-concession arc that I've been like pretty resistant to, do you see like who do you see most people? Is he a good example of like 10% of the voting populace? Is he a good example of like only the punditry? Is he an example? Like, what do you?
I think the punditry. But I think the issue is there's a huge disconnect between the punditry and the average person, right? Like if you saw my debate with Owen Schroyer, right? I did the $5,000 bet with him about who got into the Capitol first, a Proud Boys person or an officer letting people in, right? Owen Schroyer will never take that bet with me because he knows he's wrong. All the conservative pundits know they're wrong, but the people that listen to them don't know that they're wrong. They actually believe them, and that's the issue, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's like a major propaganda issue. The problem is that like it's frustrating when I like look at like working with Democrats this entire last year and just like how ineffectual they are at like handling any of this. Like it seems like there's like no inability, and maybe I'm just being too harsh on Democrats.
Well, I think the harshness is warranted, but then the response just has to be, the problem is like Democrats are always on the defensive. And so that allows conservatives to dictate the conversation. And when you're defending, remember, the best you can do is come out even. You never win a fight when you're on the defense. So if conservatives are allowed to dictate every conversation, and when there's nothing to talk about, they make shit up, literally, right? Like this whole Tulsi Gabbard, Comey prosecution shit, this is all like a fabricated fucking issue, or some trans issue. Or remember when we were talking for like a week about some immigrant bus driver who took an illegal turn, or truck driver, and then a van of people hit. Like why the fuck are we talking about this for a week? Like they just control everything, and liberals are like petrified of bringing up something on their own and fighting on it. So
I guess I'm curious what you think about the fact, like when I talk to conservatives, they're usually going to call me like a fringe radical leftist, communist, etc. But there are now liberals. Like I think what's been hard for me in this like last political shift, particularly I think in the last like 3 months, there are now a lot of liberals who will look at me who's like willing to agree that there's a lot of problems on the left that I'm really dissatisfied with, especially as somebody who worked with Democrats, like staffers and politicians all last year. I'm really upset with the Democrats as well. But they'll look at me as a result of me saying that, despite me still doing like political activism, and then they'll call me conservatives, right? Like multiple people in the Reddit are calling me conservative and stuff like that. Like it, and the question is, it feels like when I'm trying to figure out where I'm placing people, it feels like the Overton window just doesn't exist anymore. Like it's just all these words don't mean anything whatsoever, which makes it really, really hard to kind of figure out who's oriented politically, directionally in the same direction as you. Because if you want to build a media like system that's as effective as Republicans are really good at identifying who's directionally aligned with them and pulling people in and working together and overlooking differences. Because it feels like we can't do that on the left, and we need to be able to do that. But I don't want to take away the left's like desire to self-criticize or whatever.
Sure. One of the reasons why Republicans are so good at that is because Republicans will tell you what Republicans are, but they also tell you what Democrats are, right? Like go look at every single .gov homepage today, and you're going to see that the government right now is telling us that radical left-wing government, the radical left-wing Democrats have shut the government down. This is on like the HUD page, on the CDC page, the SBA page, like all the .govs have this insane message right now. So if you are like a reasonable person on the left, well, it's almost like they're no true Scotsmaning your own side, where it's like, well, if you're reasonable on the left, you must not be on the left. You must be a centrist or a moderate, because there are no reasonable people on the left as defined by the Republican Party, right? Like when they say radical Democrats, they're talking about Schumer and Jeffries. These are not radicals by any sense of the imagination, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like,
Except for today when they're trying to convince them to their side. Now they're moderate liberals again.
yeah, that's just like, yeah, so they're no true Scotsmaning everything. So this is one of the things I got tired of when I go on shows and I've got to like separate myself from the left. Like, I actually don't think I'm that separate from the moderate left. They just have no voice on the left, and the right tells you that the majority of the left all want like trans athletes invading our bathrooms and raping our young children, I guess, in prisons.
Sure.
It's just like unhinged.
I guess it feels like our own side is buying into this, at least like the viewers and the consumers, right? Like I think watching people, like I'm gonna just use me as a personal example because I'm obviously familiar with it, but I've seen this even with like Hutch and people like this, where people will hear takes that aren't like far enough virtue signally, I think, enough for them. This person's clearly on the left. They're clearly a liberal. Like, and you can just watch everything that they do. But then our own side, like not just the leftists, right? The leftists have been calling us like conservatives forever, like the communists and stuff like that. And the tankies. But increasingly, I feel like I'm seeing liberal spaces calling other liberals conservatives in like a defaming way, where it's like everything you can look at about this person is clearly liberal. I don't know why we would begin to chase this person out. Like, what are we doing right now?
I mean, I think partially, I think it's because you've got, and maybe there's some analysis to be done here. I haven't done it. Maybe someone else can. But like the Republicans on the right have spent so long attacking liberals on the left and depressed them so much in terms of like dictating what their beliefs are, that the only strong left-leaning media that has emerged, at least online, is like the tanky shit, and the tanky people all fucking hate liberals as well. So now you have like nobody, like watching these CNN interviews and stuff where Mike Johnson can go on and just lie with impunity. It makes me want to kill myself. It's insane. Like the center left media is super cucked, and then the far left spend most of their time attacking the center left. Right? They don't seem to care much about Trump, or they don't seem to talk about him as much. Or when they do say something negative about Trump, they say something negative about both sides. They just talk about the duopoly and the donor class. So I mean, like if you're center left, like it truly does feel like you have no representation. The people who own your media environment are the far left who fucking hate you. And then the people who own the rest of the media environment are the right-leaning people that call all of you radicals. So the only way to distinguish yourself is become a tanky or abandon the Democratic Party, because there's no strong voice on your side.
Yeah, I mean, there's just this like crazy imbalance of like left-wing versus right-wing media. And like you said, there isn't really a strong like liberal group. And it feels like liberals are like so beaten down that we're like very fearful to like bandy together and like lift each other up, which I think is like the only thing that we can do right now. Like if we want a strong liberal left, then we like have to get in behind one another that are directionally oriented, even if we have major disagreements. You know, like I don't know how you feel about like the abundance, like Ezra Klein stuff. I think Ezra Klein has like misstepped in certain areas, and I don't love everything that he does. But I think directionally, he should be something that we're like willing to rally behind. But it feels like there's a pretty intense aversion to doing so. And if not Ezra Klein, then my question would be like, who's the other liberal media figure that we should be like trying to rally behind? That's like trying to like bring the troops together and build us together and like help each other and collab with one another and share platforms and share audiences. Like truly like Mercedes Chandler from Unfuck America is like the main experience I've had with that, and yourself, right? Of like sharing platforms and trying to lift up the left.
I feel like most center left libs should back people like Ezra Klein. I feel like that's a pretty easy ask. Like the abundance agenda, I think most center left libs would back, but like most of the people that talk about it, again, on the right, are going to call it weird commie shit. I don't even know if they talk about it that much. Most of the attacking from abundance comes from tankies and socialists on the left. They just shit on it because they think it's like neoliberalism rebranded or whatever. So
a lot of moderate rights in my life, at least, like the normies, really like it. Like as long as I just like couch it in a language that like is conservative pilled, they're like, that's amazing. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, I didn't know liberals were doing based stuff. And I'm like, yeah, they are. Like this
kind of, yeah.
Stuff is like,
you got to be, have you ever heard of the term third positionist?
no.
So one thing that I didn't realize how little attachment conservatives had to like capitalism or whatever. But a long time ago, you did these like Nazbols or whatever. They'd call themselves sometimes third positionists. They're okay being like liberally economic or economically liberal, like sometimes far left. They'll be okay with socialized healthcare. They'll be okay with, you know, heavy government subsidies on stuff. They just only want it for white people, for natives. And so for conservatives, if you describe some things like that, they'll be okay with it. But in their mind, they're still like highly xenophobic. They just don't want it to apply to any weirdos like Haitians coming into our country and eating cats and dogs or whatever crazy shit they believe in. There is zero economic principle on the right now. None of them believe in anything. That's why they went from being free markets to supporting terrorists, or not terrorists, I'm sorry, tariffs, or why they went from like the no new wars to celebrating war with Venezuela now and the Department of War and everything else. Yeah, there's no value there. It's just, or no like principles or values. It's just whatever Trump says in his base. Yeah.
Do you think so? I was looking at some like data the other day that basically said that like for Democrats to win, they essentially need the moderate, like they need the swing vote more often, just because of how our population is spread out. Like we just like need it for the electoral college, essentially. Do you know if you've seen something that's similar?
I think you have to be really careful when you define moderate, because sometimes people define moderate as like independent. I think that sometimes if you try to appeal to independents, you can kind of sort of win more, but I think it's just because you turn out your own base more. Like it's not like you have to appeal to, and everybody has a different role in the ecosystem. Like I don't think it's wrong to try to appeal to MAGA voters, whatever. This is not what I'm doing right now, but I think that there's like a time and a place and a role for like tons of different actors in the media environment. But I don't think appealing to the MAGA people, it has to be done to win elections. But like there are just like some edge issues that Democrats could probably drop that would help them. But the main issue right now is just messaging, because policy-wise and position-wise, like these things just don't. Policy and position just doesn't exist in the United States right now. Like people, like the right MAGA will literally fucking jump on board with fucking everything. Like I know a while ago, you and a few other people I think were convinced that like the Epstein stuff would take hold, and like even that they seem to just like fucking abandon. Like I feel like Trump could literally do anything and it wouldn't matter. It's just insanity.
Yeah, it is really insane. Okay, I have to get going to a meeting, but thanks for inviting me in. Thanks for watching my content, and
have fun.
You know,
Be
so
careful.
your chat knows they can fight me tomorrow because I'm a really bad, dirty, maybe conservative liberal. So
Base. Have fun. Be careful.
Bye.
Like Marxist-Leninists. I think it should shift in such a direction so that like Marxist-Leninists, I don't know if I'm making this image very clear, but okay, we've got this paradigm. Okay, we've got the corporate coastal elite, and then, I'm inverted for you. You can probably understand it though. And I'm like here, I'm a lot more moderate. Okay, and then over here, we've got like Marxist-Leninists, and then like off the chart, we've got like the Stalinists. Okay, Stalinists are not included already, right? We've chased them out. Everyone thinks it's bad to be Stalinist. Marxist-Leninists, we kind of fuck with them. I think that those should be our fringe elements, where we're like, they're kind of crazy. We might work with them on very specific activities, like a labor union issue or something like that, but like they're not in the party. Like they're kind of like the freaks that we work with sometimes, right? And it should move a little bit more center to include like the moderate normie plumber or like libertarian intellectual with left social predilections, essentially, you know, like the libertarian who's like really chill about like gay trans shit. I think the Democrat Party would be best served if it included that. And I think honestly right-wingers need to completely excise and rebut the techno-fascists and the Christian nationalists, which they are absolutely
They'll never do that, ever, never.
Cozying up to.
Well, I think that there's a real threat there on the right. Wick and I did a few videos on the woke right earlier this year, and you know the way that I define the term, just so that people don't get mad at me, because every time I talk about woke right, I lose all my fans because you know, my base is mostly on the right. But the way I define that is that if you are invoking identitarian or collective.
The next thing, this should be the next question. I don't think Kyle is going to ask it. I wish he would. The question would be, how much of the left do you think is the woke left? And how much of the right do you think is the woke right? I'm curious. I'm so curious what his answer for percentage-wise would be on that.
This grievance to undo the American moral proposition, you're woke, right? And I don't like that on the left when they say our founding fathers were racist. We can like all the documents they treated were trash. We should tear down the statues. I don't like it on the right when they say, you know, we should, you know, enact a purity test where you can only get elected to office if you're baptized, or like whatever the version of that is. But I think what we need to start doing is being precise about it, right? Because like I've never talked.
Also, that's true too. Why would the majority of his audience abandon him for talking about the woke right if he's a centrist or moderate? Isn't that kind of weird? Why would that happen?
To Andrew Wilson. But the question I want to ask him, if I ever do get to talk to him, is, are you saying you want to form a political coalition that will vote for politicians with Christian values? That's well within bounds. But if you're saying, I want to do that, and then I want to leverage that political power to undo religious liberty, that's out of bounds, right? So like, and I don't know exactly who's who yet. And I think we need firm definitions, because then I can apply them. I can say like, oh, you're a Christian, right? You want to elect a lot of Christian politicians with Christian values. That's in bounds, right? You want to undo religious liberty? That's out of bounds. And then I can tell who's who, right? Right now, I think the lines are too blurry, and we're all fighting about who's woke and who's not. So I think we could be more clear about that.
Gotcha. I guess like kind of my last question for you, I guess from a purely tactical like game theory perspective, why do you think Democrats should fight to bring people like yourself or Joe Rogan back into the tent?
I think if I'm going to put on my Democrat hat for a second, like just like
game
understand
theory.
like, you know,
Game theory,
you can take it as you will, because obviously I'm not on your side, but like if I was giving tactical advice, right, to someone like Destiny, and this is not secret, I said this to him, and I wish to God he'd fucking listened to me, but he didn't, so whatever. I don't think the left can win in a mud fight. They might win elections, but in the long run, when the left is at its maximally compelling, it's because they have a narrative tied to a great figure like Obama or Clinton with a lot of political talent, who can explain in simple terms why they're going to make people's lives better in a way that sounds like common sense. And they need the moral high ground to do it. That's when the left is at its politically strongest. Getting into a mud wrestling contest.
What an unbelievably crazy political analysis. The only way your side can win is when they have the moral high ground over it. Like, what an unbelievably crazy thing to say.
Where we're exchanging memes back and forth, and we're trying to see who can be the nastiest and the snarkiest and the sharpest, and then drive everyone into their tribal corners. I think is a playing field that is hugely advantageous to the right. I think that they won't win every election, but they'll win most of them. So amongst my many criticisms of what Destiny is doing right now, but people like, and I, by extension, so the people you're talking about when they're saying like, should we reclaim these people? I think that driving the tactics that way just won't work. So take that for what it's worth. But I don't see a path to long-term success for the left doing that.
Sorry, I should have clarified this. Not so much how we do it. I think I asked you practically, but what I meant more so is practically, why should the left pick you or Joe Rogan over Mamdani and Hassan?
Oh, I mean, I would hope because people who occupy the position that like Joe Rogan does or that I do share the common American proposition. We believe in it, right? We actually believe that like the moral principles espoused by our founders exist today. And this really does matter. And it does because America is a propositional nation. We're founded on a particular philosophy. And when I get very frustrated debating people on X or whatever I'm doing, when I'm talking to someone on the woke right or the woke left, their first argument is always, we want to abandon the founding philosophy, right? That they need to do that because that lets them replace it with whatever bullshit they're spouting. But we're very vulnerable to that as a country because we don't have an ethnicity to fall back on. We don't have a religion to fall back on. If you take away our founding values, we are not one country anymore. We're just different people floating around with a shared government. So there's a vulnerability here. And people like Mamdani, people like Hassan, they want to reject the proposition. That's their goal. Their goal is a post-America America. Just like the Christian right wants to reject the proposition. That's step one. And then step two is they build their utopia, right? I think those people have to be off the team. And I think they have to be off the team on both sides.
Yeah, but if you think tactically, allyship-wise, progressives have been controlling culture, Hollywood, gaming, academia. Like progressives have been very effective at like kind of taking these things over. So like, is there benefits to appealing to like the moderate, or is it just like a principled position? Because it has to be tactically beneficial. Otherwise, people won't do it because they want to win elections.
Yeah, and I think that that's actually the real challenge. Is that people on the extremes are very loud and they're magnified by algorithms. And right, like I have an experiment I want to do because I haven't done it yet. But my theory was that if I went on X and just did a bunch of posts that use the phrase civil war, I would get a tremendous level of engagement.
I don't care.
Flying today. I hope, of course, you arrive safely and on time, but you may not arrive on time because the TSA and the air traffic controllers are not getting paid today. Our military is not getting paid today, starting today, and obviously the longer this drags on, the worse that it is for the American people.
Jesus.